our civilization, or perhaps it's our species, Homo sapiens. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a combination of all of that. But I think we're either forgetful by nature, subject, I don't know, to a kind of cultural Alzheimer's disease, or else it's also possible that we are, for whatever reasons, our human frailties, mostly oblivious to periodic deletions of what previous generations learned at great cost. And the delete button is held down by that narrow band at any given moment that wants to take control of us and the situation. And so we unlearn one way or another, or we forget, or we are persuaded to set aside what has, for a protracted period, served as well. And I think we're there again now, or I know we are. Within what, obviously, this, Paul and I do together, that part of it is a podcast about what we consider to be significant moments in history that we sort of thread together like, I don't know, pearls on a string. And I call it my love letter, Neil Oliver's love letter to the world. You know this. And I couldn't help but notice that the last two moments were one after the other about the last European person to be put to death for witchcraft. And then the next one was about the efforts by the founding fathers, so-called, to balance within the Constitution of the fledgling United States of America the rights of the majority and the sovereign rights of the individual. So, to deal with the second one first, the founding fathers and so on, it's my contention that balancing act is impossible, that there's no solution to that puzzle. I think all you end up with is an imperfect or an incomplete solution, a halfway house, a means by which we could cope with the eternal tussle or the conflict between what's decided by the many and the personal wishes of one person who disagrees with the collective decision for whatever reason. I don't think you can solve that. But I would say that right now, at this moment in history, the rights and freedoms of the sovereign individual are once again under threat, and that we are being tricked. We're being tricked into surrendering those rights under the cover of the illusion that such a step is in the common good. I'm always wary when anybody suggests that something's in the common good, because invariably in the longer term ends up with piles of bodies, but that's another issue. And I think we will have to learn once again, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, about the inalienable rights of the individual. And I bang on about inalienable rights, and I know I do. There's three things to know about inalienable rights. Those rights are not given to you by any person. You're born with them. They come from God or from the invisible or from on high, whatever you want to think of, but you are born with rights. They cannot be taken from you by a person. They're not given to you by a person. And third, and perhaps most important of all, because they're inalienable, the meaning of that word is that even if you want to surrender those rights, you can't. You're not able to give up your rights. So even if someone comes to you and says, I want to enslave you and tell you what to wear and when to go to the toilet, even if you want to submit to that for a quiet life, you can't because your rights are inalienable. You can't surrender them. So I had that all going around in my head, but of course that consideration of the founding fathers and the Constitution of the United States of America, it had come after another episode about the last person to die in Europe as a witch. Her name was Anna Goldie. It happened in 1782, just over the hill, just out of sight, in a place called Glarus in Switzerland. So, bear in mind, elsewhere at the same time, the founding fathers were seeking to frame the rights of civilization, the rights of the individual. All at the same time, an unmarried mother had her head cut off by a man with a sword because it had been decided she was a witch. It's 1782. She had fallen foul. I won't go into the full details of the story, but Anna had fallen foul of a powerful man and she had, deliberately or perhaps only inadvertently emerged as a threat to his well-being and his place in society. And so science and reason were set aside, and she was tortured into a confession of witchcraft and then beheaded in the town square in front of a watching crowd. And you can bet your bottom dollar that the majority of those people knew the truth of the matter, that it was nonsense, that she was no witch. But one way or another, they found or chose to be powerless to intervene. And for the past few years, I would say, we've been back in the realm where science and reason are set aside so that powerful people might get their way. It has happened before, and it keeps happening. So many people looked on at what was happening these years just past and knew it was wrong. So much of it was wrong that lockdowns were disastrous for people's health, mental and physical, and for the economy. That masks were nonsense. That mandates were an unacceptable intrusion. But so many people went along with it anyway, rather than risk the consequences of speaking up. And so we strolled, or were herded, or were frog-marched into a situation where people who wouldn't wear masks or who wouldn't take prescribed medical procedures were demonised by others. Demonised. Furious, and also flecking at the lips excited was the baiting and othering, people baying for their disobedient neighbours to be driven from society. Or worse, maybe imprisoned, maybe held down and given the medicine by force, maybe have their children taken from them. Right now, while we are distracted by the burning at the stake of whoever, an online safety bill is working its way into law that might see people arrested for holding certain opinions or for speaking out against official narratives. The mainstream media has emerged as the latest incarnation of the Witchfinder General, taking it upon itself to scream headlines about who should burn next. We're back with the ducking stool in many respects, or the way in which the completely unsurvivable scenario that was inflicted upon people for the general amusement of the mob. Sometimes it was a wooden stool that a person could be tied to, usually a woman, and dunked into the water. But when it came to deciding if a woman was a witch or not, there was a fun game played whereby a woman's right hand would be tied to her left foot, and then she'd be thrown into a river or a lake. And if she bobbed up to the surface, then she was in league with the devil, and she was burnt at the stake or whatever. If she drowned, then it was conceded that she'd been innocent, that she was no witch, but she still ended up dead, and the mob moves on. And it's becoming, impossible, the situation. An energy bill has been passed that will give the state the right to kick your door down if you don't obey the diktats of net zero and the rest of the green agenda. Rights and freedoms, the same that were agonised over by the founding fathers in North America in the 1780s, are being set aside once more. Like we've forgotten why they were put there in the first place. Like we've forgotten why, in one civilization after another, the rights of the individual have to be stated and restated. Collective Alzheimer's is setting in, rotting brains, so that we forget what our ancestors learned and spilled blood to defend. And sooner or later, we will have to learn and remember and reclaim it all once more. Because it's a sad fact that people are thrilled by witch hunts, and that's why they keep happening in one form or another. People are distracted, some willingly, by the flames reflected in their eyes. We talk on here about time travel and the past repeating or rhyming or whatever with the present. I would say that as a civilization, you might say that in some crucial respects, every now and again, in some kind of cyclical process, we close our eyes and open them and find ourselves in Salem, Massachusetts, for those febrile few months in the 1690s when dozens of people were put to death as witches. You know, we're back in that world one way or another. I saw Goody Proctor talking to the devil, and away we go again. And it's just something that it would appear that we go through as a society or as a species. We forget what the ancestors fought for and handed on to us, and we lose it, or we give it away, and then we have to get it all back again. Well, here we are.